Good afternoon. Today, I'd like to return to the subject of online teaching and online learning. And this is really for anyone who is taking an online class in any subject. And also, too, if you're a professor, you're a teacher, feel free to share this um, if you agree with me, especially, but feel free to share this as means of helping your students. And today I'd like to look at the most challenging part of online forums. It's not writing the original posts, believe it or not. I have found the most challenging part of it to be writing responses. And over the years, the standard has changed a bit. When I first started, as long as you wrote a lot, that was good. Then we started looking for more actual constructive substance in responses, and students started having a harder time with that. How do you contribute to learning? How do you learn yourself? That's important. And how do you sustain the conversation? And don't forget that online forums are conversations. I compare them to social media. The only thing is that you have a higher motivation there to gain college credit and to learn. Also, civility is much more important than it is on social media, where flame wars go back to the days of AOL and Delphi and all the other original online services, where trashing people becomes not just blood sport, but a way of life. So, within those limits, online educational forums are social media, just with higher purposes. Now, people will try to be more stilted on online forums because, well, it's a little more formal. I don't compare it to the formal writing assignments where um, people have to express themselves in standard academic written English. They have to be very strict about paragraph structure and things like that. And this washes into the post as well. They have a higher standard. But for responses, those standards are actually higher nowadays. And here are the things that people can do to make their work better. First of all, add something. Put in a new insight, a new perspective, a new bit of information. Maybe you found a source that's in addition to the references that the original poster made. Feel free to present it. Also, as long as you do it in a civil manner, you can disagree. You don't have to look at every post and say that you have to agree with it and then say nice things. You can say things like, I respectfully disagree, or I have another perspective on that. That is constructive. That is substance. Now, I don't necessarily like the more basic negative feedback from students where they'll tell each other, oh, your grammar needs improved, or you're lousy at punctuation. No, no, no. Leave that to me. This is why I get those big professor bucks, if you can stop laughing at that. But yeah, we save the real negative stuff for me. I'll say it in private where there's more dignity. You don't have to embarrass anyone, but you're allowed to disagree. In fact, I encourage it. I have students, I have classes that have a lot of diversity, not of opinion so much as conviction, where you might have LGBT people mixed in with evangelical Christians, along with Muslims, along with observant Jews, a holy mixture of things. And it's good if people can express themselves politely and civilly amongst a diverse group of people, and they can politely exchange ideas. They can see their differences as well as where they come across. They come in common. Um, I'd like to see more of that. And this isn't a matter of compromising one's values. This is a matter of learning to express them better and to understand other people's values as well. I don't want to see any flame wars or derogatory terms. If it sounds like an insult you'd use on Facebook, don't use it. But it's okay to respectfully disagree. And also, too, please keep it on topic. And when it isn't, I'll come in. But disagreement's fine. Another thing is you can ask a question. And a question will almost automatically guarantee substance. Don't write like one simple superficial question, but write something that's thought out with maybe a couple sentences of background to set it up. I don't want to see anything short and superficial, but you don't have to be long-winded either. In fact, some of the most substantive contributions I've seen have been a paragraph, maybe 2 sentences, maybe 3. One, you're probably getting a little brief there, but try to set it up, ask a question. Likewise, if someone else asks a question, feel free to answer it. One of the principles that I use is that if I want a private conversation, I'll send an email or I'll do it through feedback. Usually if I put something on a forum and it's not explicitly pertaining to something like early in a course, I'll say, hey, that's a little brief. Do you want to reword that, expand it? Because I'd rather tell them than dock them points the next week and yell, gotcha. But otherwise, if I ask a question, feel free to chime in. And this is something that I can advise other educators to do, and that is to welcome responses, not just from the person you're asking. And there's a temptation there sometimes to grade down because that person didn't answer. Maybe they're thinking about it. Maybe they wrote other responses elsewhere. I don't see it as a 100% total requirement that you answer me directly. If you do, that's great, and I will acknowledge it. But questions are for everyone. If I respond and I say something, everyone is invited to respond. You can even say you disagree, respectfully, of course, just as you would to your classmates. Nothing like, hey, Jagoff, where did you come up with that? No. I don't want that from anybody towards anyone in my classroom. But again, you can respectfully disagree. You can have a different perspective. I've had it happen. I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. And as I have reminded many people over the years, there is no line on any rubric I have seen that says you have to absolutely agree with the professor. And I've also given feedback that says, I don't personally agree with you, but you expressed yourself in a really good manner. You made a good case. I don't agree, but I have to recognize the quality here. And they get the same grade as anyone else. I don't have the time in a 5 or an 8 week course to convert anyone, even if I was interested. I don't have the time, and I don't think I have the talent or the inclination to be much of a missionary. So, yeah, you can disagree. Disagree with me. Disagree with your classmates. It's all good to me. So, that's important. And you'll see something here, too. This is all substance that has to deal with the subject. It also sustains the conversation. I hate it when someone writes a post and then people just check a box. I had to write 3 responses. So here are my 3. And they don't really add anything, but they wrote their 3 responses. And of late, I've taken actually grading down on that because they're not conversational. Talk to people as you would with social media. Maybe a little better grammar and spelling and punctuation. and a little less vitriol, as we've seen on social media. Yeah, we've all been subject to flame wars, and some of us have won them. But don't engage in that. But sustain the conversation. And this is where questions are valuable. This is where answering other people's questions are valuable. This is where answering my responses are valuable. You want a conversation. And I love it when I see someone post something, someone else responds, then two or three other people respond to them or to the original poster, and you get things rolling. And a lot of times I will go in and I will see that, and that even if I am required to, say, respond to everybody in an early week, I will back off because, hey, you're doing fine. You don't need me to prompt you. Or I might add something as additional fuel for conversation, but I never want to shut it down. This is why I might back off a little. You're doing fine. You don't need me. So I'll just go off and do something that is more necessary. Now, we'll get to the parts that are driving me nuts. The parts I will advise you not to do. First of all, over the years, we have, in all the places I've taught, really rewarded people for wordy responses. And one of the worst approaches I've seen, and I've given lots of negative feedback about this, especially in the last year, is you just repeated what the other person just said. And we just read it. We don't have to read it again. And so what they'll do a summary or review, usually starting with, hey, great post. I loved when you said, or I really liked, blah, 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 more blah, 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 two more paragraphs of blah, blah, blah. And it's nothing new. They don't add anything. They don't stimulate anything as, say, a question or an answer would, or even a disagreement. They just repeat what the other person said, sometimes in almost the same words. This isn't adding a thing. The substance has just been said. We just read it. And this is not how you have a conversation, even up close and personal or online. How many times have you gone on Facebook and someone writes a post and then a respondent says, wow, good post. I really like ... blah, blah, blah. No, doesn't happen. So follow your instincts from social media there. Briefer, more substantive, and don't repeat everything. In fact, I had a colleague that referred to this as a regurgitory response, and that really sums it up. Now, it may have a lot of words, but I think it's an easy way out too, because you just take what the other person said, paraphrase, repeat, and you have a response. Now, in the old days, even I would say this, wow, great response. You put a lot of work into this. Now we're starting to revise that perspective, that just because it's wordy doesn't mean that it's good. And a summary is probably the least valuable of all. Now, the corollary is not applicable. There is no corollary. But what I do tell people is that in order to convey substance, sometimes you have to write a little longer. It's not like 3 words. It's not like 1 sentence. You've got to be able to get a point in there. And you can't do it really, really super brief. You've got to add something. Substance does take words. But don't go to excess and don't start regurgitating the original post. You're responding to something, not repeating it. Add something. Use maybe a couple sentences to set up your question. Even if it's a little review oriented there, that's fine because you're taking an opportunity to set up your contribution. So get rid of those wordy reviews. They're starting to drive me nuts because it's repetitious. Maybe not of yourself, but of the other person. This contributes very, very little. So put this in the column of don't do that. Don't review, don't summarize, do something else. First part of the video was the something else. Another thing that drives me nuts, and don't do this, I see people following the same pattern, the same template for multiple responses. You'll see often starting with the same words. Then you'll see very identical or very similar paragraphs with maybe a couple names changed, maybe not. And it's basically you've got a template, you've got a pattern. Even if it's just in your head, you're repeating yourself. So, to get around that, build every response from scratch. Tailor it to the situation, to the original post, to the thread. And this way, too, you will avoid not just being repetitious, but you will avoid that trap of writing reviews. And I know sometimes, I've been doing this since 2009. Sometimes I know I repeat myself and I do it on feedback. It's habit. But you guys don't have that excuse. You're not going to be in online college for 19 years, 18 or 19 years. It's liable to be 6 or less. So you're not going to be repeating yourself quite as much. The opportunity and the temptation shouldn't be there. So build from scratch. Then if it turns out to be similar to something else, that's not a matter of following a template. And this is what I tell myself about my own work. That's not a template. That's not a pattern. That's style. And if you build it from scratch and don't think of, well, paragraph 1 has to be repetition of such and such. Paragraph 2 brings it together. Paragraph 3 is more of the same with the same words. Don't do that, please. So these are traps that you can fall into. And I think they definitely hold back learning. They hold back the quality of the forum. And there's a term that I use from corporate America that I think applies here, and that's adding value. If your response adds value, I'll see it. I'll give you good feedback for it, most probably. Because a lot of times I read the responses first when I grade, because that's the more challenging part for students. But if you can go in there and you can add something to the conversation, and yes, it has to be a conversation, ideally, great. Do that beyond anything. So the 2 values you should be looking at here, the 2 places where you add value. First of all, it's substance, that additional insight, that additional information or source or disagreement. Second, sustains the conversation. If it looks like you are just saying something and that's the end, that's not doing it. If you're repeating the other person or yourself, that's not doing it either. Do something that ideally someone else, including the original poster, can answer. Something that maybe I can answer. And if I don't do it in the forum, if I don't see it, like if it comes late or I just don't see it, chances are if you ask a question on the forum directed to me, I will answer it in the feedback. So that's some advice to professors too. Individualize your feedback, as I've said in other videos, and answer questions when you have the first opportunity. If it's not on the forum, or maybe it's best addressed in private, do it in private. Do it through through feedback. And I've had students who responded to feedback and said, hey, you misread this, you're wrong. And I will write back and give my answer, and sometimes, yeah, I didn't see that. Most of the time it's addressing their concerns. And I hate to say this, I hate to say that I have to justify a grade, but occasionally I do. Now, I refer to this in the original feedback as defensive grading, where the professor goes in and has to justify what they did. This does not add value to anybody. This is more for the professor's protection. And that's not an approach that I like. I would rather give feedback that helps the student now and maybe helps them with their next forum or assignment. And if it's a final forum, it's a final assignment. My thought is hopefully this will help in your subsequent classes. So this is one place where I add value, or at least I try. So this is my advice. My excuse me, allergies, but this is my advice. These are my recommendations for that tougher, more challenging part of the online forums, which is responses. Don't do fire and forget responses. Don't do regurgitatory ones. Don't make a token effort. At least for me, you'll hear from me. And bear in mind too what Blaise Pascal once said when he was responding to a friend who wrote him a letter. He said, "I apologize for the long letter because I didn't have time to write a short one." Keep that in mind, that sometimes that massive word count requires a little less effort and a little less thought than writing a more substantive, more moderately sized one. That lots of words will not get you quality. It will not get you value, especially when it's just regurgitating what someone else just said. But keep Blaise Pascal in mind that maybe a shorter response requires more thought and more time. Not a whole lot more time. You're not going to be making a career out of writing responses, but give the responses as a whole just as much thought as you do the original post. Just direct it in terms of reactivity, stimulation of other people, and again, keep on adding value. So, that's my thought for today regarding online learning and forums and forum responses. And if you're a professor, feel free to use this. If you want to use this in a class, you've got my encouragement. If you're a student, try to take these lessons to heart, and maybe you'll learn more, and maybe your grades will be better. Maybe you'll be more satisfied with yourself, even if the professor's just rubber stamping things. You don't have to. So, yeah, these are my thoughts. And as always, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Most of my work on my YouTube channel is about history, especially military history and conflict simulations, wargaming topics. But I do have other videos on online teaching. And I think for students and professors, both the historical presentations and the ones on online education and being a professor can be of value. So again, like, share, subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you, and feel free to use this as much as you want. And if you're a student who got feedback on your responses from one of my classes, please, whatever you do, watch the video. It beats writing the same feedback every time. Now I got a video for that. And you should take the time to watch it, and I think your responses and your forum work, at least in my classes, should improve if you take it to heart. So, thank you again. Thank you for your time, and I'm out of here.